But I remember, you know, being engaged, you know, my first love and all of this. And then he died tragically in a motorbike accident. Bless you. And that I couldn't even speak about for 2 years. 20 years now, and it's still as real as yesterday in my heart. And yes, I'm married. Yes, I have a little one, but I gave up on love, you know, and I just buried myself in my career and just accepted that there's a hole in my heart that will never be, and I'm okay with it. And years passed, and then I decided, you know, let me take a chance on love. Not planned or anything, and progressing and everything. And then, you know, I got pregnant and we were excited about it. And Brandy, out of 365 days of the year, you have to understand, many years on the anniversary of my fiance's death or passing, we would be in church, you know, the priest or pastor, whoever we're with, would mention his name. The family would get together, his side of the family and some of mine, and we would have a meal together and reminisce and talk. And it was emotional, and it was, you know, it got a little easier, but it would still tug at my heart. So here it is, fast forward, years later, I'm pregnant. I go to my doctor and I say, okay, when did this happen? You know, so she was able to say, well, on the birthday of my partner. And I said, okay, that makes sense. When is the baby due? And that was the part that really hit me. She was due on the same day of my fiance's passing. Of 365 days of the year, you know. So I spoke to his family and mine, and they're saying maybe this is a sign to no more tears on that day, but joy. So I tried everything in my mind not to have this child on that day. I went through 40 hours of labor. I went through pethidine, induced labor, breakwater, epidural, and then a C-section. 37 hours in, they're like, look, you're not dilating. We need to take this baby. Now, at this point, 37 hours in, I haven't eaten. I'm exhausted. I'm overwhelmed. And I had just lost my grandmother a month before. I'm named after her. I was not with her in the same country. My heart again broke. And I remember having her shawl with me when I went into the operating theater. And by this time, they had to do not a full anesthetic, but, you know, a partial one. So the screen is there hiding. And I remember my eyes just took focus on the clock. I'm now drained, right? I have nothing left. You know, when they say, hand it over to God, you know, let go and let God. It might sound easy to do, but as you know, it is not. I had the experience of understanding what that meant. When I looked at the clock and I started to watch, and at that point, I gave up. I just said, over to you completely. And then they took Isabella out and they said, she's here. And when I looked at the clock, the moment they took her out, I looked at the clock and it was the exact time my fiance passed.
Oh my goodness. Like, I have chills as you're telling me this. That is the whole concept of something that's been a recurring theme during all of 2020 for me has been that we as believers that are, you know, with a sin nature, human beings on earth, which is covered in the wage of sin.
Yes.
We are actually, while we're in this moment of despair that we've experienced, there's still hope. Like, we can simultaneously experience hope and despair and grief and joy. And what an amazing, like, beautiful illustration. I mean, I may not have ever heard of a more beautiful illustration of like healing amongst your pain right there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then, you know, but like I said, I had to let go. I had to let go. I was trying everything to not make it happen, but there's a bigger power at play. And when you let go and you become vulnerable, then it's clearer to you. So I am, without a doubt in my mind, I know this was a transitional period for me, from moving away from tears of pain and sorrow and agony to tears of joy and happiness. But in the moment, I can't tell you it's a perfect separation. It isn't, because I was still just blown away. I mean, how does that happen? I mean, it's not planned. How does that happen?
You're listening to The Power Project. I'm your host, Brandy Voth. I also like to think that I'm your guide along this journey of purpose, which is where you will hopefully end up at the end of this podcast. I'm a mom, a wife, a daughter, a friend, an entrepreneur, an advocate in the fight against human trafficking. I wear a lot of hats, y'all, but don't we all? And most importantly, I am passionate about inspiring women to go out and lead purpose-filled lives while owning your God-given power. I have this crazy belief that we are all better when we lift each other up, which is exactly why I created this platform to spotlight other women that are leading in ministry, business, and nonprofits, in the hopes that you at home will be inspired by their stories to get up and take action in order to walk in purpose and own your God-given power. Without further ado, let's jump right in. Okay, so we jumped right into a lot of your stories of overcoming obstacles and your true journey that you've been on that has all formed you and created you to be this leader that you are, which is a leading woman that is leading other women in this space and helping to coach and guide and build and empower and all the things that we are so incredibly passionate about over here at the Power Project. And I really want to unpack where, like, who you are, you're the managing director and lead trainer at Fusion Consulting in Dallas. You have tons of seats on boards. You are a SCORE mentor. You are a co-founder of multiple nonprofits. You have been a former Miss World franchise owner, former Miss Jamaica. You are the absolute culmination of like beauty, brains, strength, power, like all the things that we love. But where did you go from growing up in Jamaica with this large family, you said, growing up, and you and I had talked earlier in the pre-chat about how you had grown up on a military base in Jamaica, had a grandfather that served in World War II. Obviously, that all plays a role in everything you've done. But what do you think are some key things as a little girl that you saw that led you to where you are today? Did you see other women that were really leading, or did you want to see other women that were leading? And do you think that one way or the other influenced you to where you are today?
Yes. Well, my grandparents had 10 kids, 7 girls and 3 boys. And yes, my grandfather served in World War II. And I spent many years growing up on a military base with my uncle being the head of the military intelligence unit. So a lot of my discipline came from that. But because there are more women that I saw around me, they were hardworking, they're dedicated. They were able to somewhat balance being a parent, being an influencer, because it's not just the immediate parents. It was my aunties and my uncles that played a big part in my life, upbringing, and my grandparents that instilled strong religious beliefs from an early age. So I had that foundation that just strengthened over time. And because I had the support of a family that believed in the same thing, a higher being, the Lord, and I was trained in that belief system, really helped me a lot. And then seeing how dedicated and hardworking my family of women were, and seeing their other girlfriends and friends, and that to me, and with a grandmother and my mother, who were one of the first real estate women in Jamaica, I saw a lot of hardworking women. So that was what I was raised to understand. You work hard, but the role of parenting must never be compromised. You make sure you take care of your family. You make sure you take care of the younger ones. So the sisters and brothers would, when they got married, they would have their kids in sets. So I had a set of cousins in my age group, and it worked that way. So we're a big family, and we could lean on each other. And so a lot of the foundational values and principles were shared amongst all of us. And it wasn't easy because we didn't have everything. There's limited resources, cash and opportunities. And there's a lot that we had to overcome. There are some of us who had to sacrifice going further with education for others to get through, ahead. And it was just that kind of dynamic. And women were seen as foundational support, tremendous support in the home, but also active in the corporate world. So I saw a lot of that growing up. And that's all I knew. You work hard. You don't wait for things to fall in your lap. You do not be discouraged. You lean on the strength of the Lord and do your part. And a lot of things I said to me remain with me today, which is always do what your heart tells you is the right thing to do. And always remember, sometimes doing the right thing is the hardest thing to do, but it must be done. And so in business, I've come across those moments when I've had to deal with challenges of people being unethical, creating division, prejudices, inappropriate conduct. And with my background with human resources, I was exposed because human resources deals with people management. And so we heard a lot of stories. We knew of a lot of situations. And I had to really help to guide people and steer them in the right direction. So oftentimes doing the right thing then was hard, because sometimes doing the wrong thing is easier. But so I've had to make some tough decisions, and I dealt with it the best way I knew how, and then prayed about it and left it, felt confident that I did my absolute best. And this is in everything. I did track and field. I mean, I'm from Jamaica. I mean, it seems to be in our blood. But I did that, and the discipline of sports really taught me that when you think you're at your last, when you feel you have absolutely no energy left and nothing left, my brother would always say to me, who he helped to coach me as well, finish the race. Finish the race. Whatever you start, finish the race. And that has stayed with me as an adult when I'm going through tough times. And I remember seeing that finishing line and thinking in my mind, sometimes our mind can be our worst enemy. And my mind is telling me, you can't do this. You're exhausted. You've completed your energy. You won't get there. You will not get there. And sometimes that negative voice is so powerful. But listening to that inner voice, which is usually sometimes even a whisper, makes all the difference in the world. And that whisper was, finish the race. You can do this. You will do this. And that's how I, did a lot of it and was very successful in it.
On the finish the race thing, because this is where we have the same mindset, because so my boys are 11 and 14 now, but they started racing dirt bikes when they were 6. And my husband was their coach, and he would tell them, it's not about how you finish. And I don't care how you finish.
Right.
Finish the race. And that was his one time we had one that just got upset and he wanted to quit, and he was mad because he had a bad lap and was getting beaten. And we went over, and he's like, it doesn't matter how you finish. It just matters that you finish. And so I love that. I love that your brother applied the exact same principle to your track and field background. And then I know that, so you were a young girl in Jamaica, military base, military family, large family, growing up in this familial village that's raising everyone together, right? And you're seeing strong females. Where did the beauty pageant industry enter this journey of yours?
Well, 2 acts were titles as well. And I never really had an interest in it. I was more shy, believe it or not. I was not, I I was usually in the background. I was never the one that had the personality of up in front or anything like that. That made me very uncomfortable. So later on in life, they came to me and they're like, well, what do you think about doing a beauty pageant? And I was like, no, no way. And I think they did it initially for me to become a little bit more confident. Let me tell you, you come under heavy scrutiny, people dissect you. If you can survive that, I think you can survive a lot. And so that's how it happened. And then I won the Miss Jamaica Body Beautiful, and I had the great honor of going to represent my country in London, Birmingham in 1997. And it was a tough competition. I had not 1 ounce of fat on my body, if there's such a thing, believe it. I was fit. I was, mind you, things have changed a lot now, but it was a great honor. And then I worked a lot with the owner of the Miss World franchise, Mickey Horton James, for a number of years. He would call me in if he had a challenge or needed me to help. So as I became a project master, I would go in, address whatever it is, get it done, achieve the goal, and then I'd go back to my consulting. And I worked with him for many years. And then I said to him, I remember 2002, why don't we introduce scholarships? And he wasn't so, he was like, look, it works how it is. Why would you want to, trouble it? It's fine. It's a perfectly.
Wait, he's like, are you saying we should encourage the education?
Well, I mean, he was like, competition was fine. It had everything it needed. And, and he was like, listen, I know you're big on education. We don't need to turn this now into an educational institution. So I remember he wasn't he has been a great supporter. I absolutely adore him. But I remember he injured his back and he pulled me in 2002 to help with the competition. And I went to the university, Dr. Adams, at the University of the Commonwealth Caribbean. And I said, Dr. Adams, I have the wonderful opportunity of, managing this beauty pageant, the Miss Jamaica World pageant. And I would like to introduce scholarships. So I went behind Mickey Horton James' back. I did. It's terrible. But anyway, and I went and negotiated scholarships. And Dr. Adams said he was so impressed with me wanting to do more for these young women that he threw in a master's program. And so it was first applied to the top 5 girls. And then when Mickey Horton James saw it on the front page of the paper, they're now being offered scholarships, he said, great job, Butler. Men. But anyway, and I took that. And then, and that was implemented forever, as long as they wanted. And then when I got the franchise was up. Mickey wanted to give it up. I applied for it, and it was the first time a woman ran, because we also had a representative for the Miss Universe finals, which is from here, the US, and the Miss World is from Europe. And so they're both representatives for decades, and they were men. So never had a woman run it before. So that was interesting. And that's why I wanted to implement 30 new things within 5 years and accomplish these things. We accomplished it within 3 years.
Can you tell me what those 30 things were?
Oh my goodness. Jamaica is, our main source of income is tourism. So I was on that, focused on that. So we aired it live online. We aired it in 26 countries for the first time live. I brought in the best. I had a 6 production team. I implemented full scholarships, a job placement program, life skills training. I expanded on charity, really tapped into the Miss World Beauty with a Purpose mantra, and made sure that we helped with the building of schools, and we worked with UNAIDS and helping with special needs and autism. We got involved. I had the girls learning to ride motorcycles. I had them learning to drive go-karts. I wanted them to know that being a woman isn't a handicap. It's a wonderful thing to embrace. And we shouldn't feel limited in whatever our desires are. And so I really worked on that. And then I also started to partner with overseas organizations and created opportunities for a lot of these women who had never been on a plane before, and took them to the Penn Relays in Pennsylvania, had them speaking on Fox News. I had a representative speaking at the 4th Pan-African Youth Leadership Summit in Senegal. I had our representatives partnering with a Shashamane group, which is through education. So they would find organizations that were in need of help. And in some instances, it could be anything. It could be they need a library. It could be they need a fence to protect the children from the wild animals. It was from, bizarre kind of scenarios, but we helped with that. And I had my Miss Jamaica representatives going on a 2-week service tour in Africa, Uganda, Ethiopia, and Kenya. And so those are just some of the things that I can even remember. But we put a team together, and some other new implementations. So the first time in our history, I pulled in PricewaterhouseCoopers, which is a client of mine, and Fusion Consulting, and I brought in auditors for the first time in our beauty pageant. I didn't want my integrity to be questioned. I know people could get emotional when their daughter, girl that they're supporting didn't win. And I wanted to make sure that it was done properly. So we had auditors from the pre-judging process straight through to finals. And on the final night, the auditors would take the scores on stage. I only made sure that I selected judges, and that was a new implementation. I had judges from Hollywood. I had Rotman Dunbar. I had quite a few people. I had former Miss Worlds. I had, people in the business sector. I had the high level people of integrity serving on that judging panel. So I revamped that. That was also a new implementation. It wasn't just because you're a former winner that you were selected as a judge. My judges had to, they came with a lot of credibility and professionalism. So I knew they could really focus on who, based on the criteria, who the young woman should be. So those were other implementations. I had girls we gave blood. I implemented for the first time on our program a church service. So we had to be in church. We had to, there's a lot of things that we did that was very, very different. And it was over 30 implementations. And those are just some things that readily come to mind. But they also had to work together on projects. We had team building programs. I had girls breaking down, Miss Butler, I can't do it, at the top of something they're trying to climb over and they're stuck. And, I'm saying pull on each other, lean on your sisters. There's so much that women go through. There's so much we have in common. I think the world would be different if we supported each other more.
Hey guys, if you've considered starting a podcast, but you're overwhelmed by how to actually launch, I've created a basics of podcasting course over on Skillshare. So you can sign up for my course and get 2 months of free premium membership. Skillshare is where I learn all types of skills that I don't know how to do otherwise. I'll include the link in the show notes. You can head over to Skillshare and search Brandy Voth's class, The Basics of Podcasting. And what was it? So tell me, because you revamped everything about the entire, Miss World franchise or Miss World organization. And so tell me, you created this culture within the organization where you said, I'm going to empower you. I'm not going to just, tell you you're pretty and that you can answer questions, correctly and you have poise and posture, but we're going to empower you. We're going to give you all these skills. And that, I love that. Like that gets my blood pumping. And so you assembled this panel of these like high integrity professional judges to come in and really like dig deep into, what these girls were doing. Did you change the judging criteria as a whole? Did it look one way before you came in and one way after you left?
Well, the Miss World has its judging criteria that we have to follow. But what's important is you have to get people who are professionals, who are not attached to any of the young women, who will be able to focus on those criteria. And so that's what we really looked at. And then with PricewaterhouseCoopers auditing the judging process, we couldn't go wrong. it was very legitimate. It was straightforward. And then we trained the young women. So I had young women speaking at the Rotary Club.
I first spoke when I was 9 years old.
Oh my gosh. Well, I had them speaking, and I have to tell you, a lot of these Rotarians were always very impressed because I train in protocol and public speaking, and I had the girls, we had to go through a selection where they had to do an assignment and present for the entire team. So we made a decision based on who would be the keynote speaker, who would give the vote of thanks, who would do the introduction, so they could get a part to, they could feel a part of it. And then the person who had to do the keynote speaking, who was a keynote speaker, sort of precedence. Who is she going to say first? What is that going to look like? She had her timing down impeccably. So when she delivered, she looked sharp. She was smart. She was well prepared. Her information was well researched, and her delivery was just top notch. So they were always impressed with these young women. So that's also a new implementation. I had them speaking in different circles to challenge them as young women and being able to tap into the protocol and the public speaking and the etiquette and all of that. I also teach an etiquette from a 3-course to a 7-course meal. And so I hosted them for events. We had to do events, tea parties, and all these things. Because, I find in the corporate world, when you have a lot of these things under your belt, when you understand it, when you understand about etiquette and good manners and protocol, you're able to really come across as polished and truly professional. And so these are things, a lot of job interviews are done over in a social setting. It's not that people aren't prepared mentally for the interview. It's just that they're freaking out about what knife and fork to use, or how do I tap into conversational skills, or what are appropriate conversations to bring up, and how do I prepare for that? So we went through all of that, and our girls were so impressed with them. They really worked hard, and I did drill them. I had them, another new initiative was we're part of the Hope Zoo, which is our zoo in Jamaica, restoration program. And we're able to get a hotel to give it, fruit and things that they weren't, that they tossed to the animals. And then I had the girls up there, 5 a.m., crack of dawn, cleaning cages, raking up the yard, all the leaves and bagging it and doing things. We were really involved. We also did a homeless program where we joined this other organization to give over 500 homeless in downtown Kingston. And so we partnered with a catering company, and the girls were there, and they were giving out food. And I think this is important, because sometimes you think your world is difficult until you listen to the stories of others, or you actually see the struggles of others. I had them at the hospital looking at, children who, were born deformed, and parents just abandon them, and they're just in a crib in absolute agony until their dying days. My objective wasn't to hurt the girls, but just to open their eyes to, to always recognize and count their blessings and help those who they're able to help, and never think you're in this world alone. Any opportunity, whether it be just supporting a friend, a sister, or whatever the case is, or going in a bigger way. And like I said, a lot of the projects I've done, Brandy, I didn't have the first penny towards it. And we've built projects that have costed, a large amount of money. And we got it done. But there are some things that were important to me personally to drive home. And one of them was, I work with Special Needs Olympics. And one of our athletes, yes, Jamaica is great with Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price, fastest woman in the world, and Usain Bolt, fastest man in the world, and previous fastest man and woman that handed over to them, who were also Jamaicans. But there's also Kirkwaite, our Special Needs Olympian, and he's phenomenal. He's in a wheelchair. And one of the things that I wanted to do, and these are all additional implementations, I got the Miss World organization to come to Jamaica and open serious discussions with government and the private sector to see how Jamaica could be considered to be a host country, because it made sense, right? We depend on tourism, and the Miss World organization brings over 100 and odd countries being represented, and the world watches it. So I thought that would be great focus. But one of the things I wanted to do when I had a reigning Miss World, Rolene Strauss, in Jamaica, and you have to have the production. That was a lot of stress, a 6 different level production team. When you're going live, you have to make sure everything, your timing is right, your lighting, everything. So I was working with the best, but it was really challenging for a woman to be managing, because most of these production teams are men, right? So that was interesting times. And we relocated it to Montego Bay, which is a tourism capital. And there it meant we all had to relocate, all the production teams. So that in itself, hundreds, each production team was like over 100 and so on. But in the script, I would get a celebrity or somebody that I thought was of great value to ask the girls this unexpected question. And I had Tessanne Chin, who won The Voice, a Jamaican who won The Voice as a judge. I had Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price as a judge once. And then this particular year, I wanted Kirk Wint. But I knew Kirk would not have been able to ask the question, perhaps, but it was written in the script that the MC knew if he hesitated, they would just ask the question. I remember my production team saying to me, but Laura, why? He's special needs, he can't do this. I said, you missed the point. The point is, before he speaks, I'm going to show his footage at the World Games where he is in a wheelchair, Brandy. And this athlete decides the wheelchair is going to be too slow for him. He leaps out of the wheelchair and runs the race on all 4s. Let me tell you, when you see that footage, goosebumps. And at the end of it, when they put him back in the wheelchair, he got a standing ovation in the stadium. And somebody tapped him on the shoulder and said, Kurt, that's for you. And the smile that young man put off, just seeing the appreciation, was just remarkable. So I wanted to show the footage. And while I'm showing the footage, I teamed up with public transportation system, and they were able to take their 80 special needs athletes that we have. And I took 50 of them as my special guest, transported them to Montego Bay. And I said to my team, they're to be seated in VIP. Make sure they need for nothing. That was a time that I was tapping into the special needs and giving Lorna Bell support and helping to other, private sector and government to really get involved with special needs even more. So after the footage, and he was seated right beside the reigning Miss World from South Africa. And of course, just the smile. He didn't ask the question, but my objective was achieved. And then the MC asked. So I did a lot of those things that people didn't quite understand initially, but they got the message after. They got the message. So any opportunity I had to showcase an organization or people who are dedicated and true, hardcore professionals and hard workers and just phenomenal, I would do it. I would leverage whatever platform I had to share.
So I think that it's amazing. And I love the way your brain works. Like I could sit here and just like be in conversation with you for hours. But I think that you operated this in the same manner that several of us that are in the restoration piece of working with survivors of human trafficking, we're really looking and implementing the same types of standards, because Dr. Vanessa Boucher from TCU was on the show a couple of episodes back, and she works with traffic survivors in India, and then she's created this social enterprise to employ both domestic and international survivors of human trafficking. And she talks about working at the micro, the meso, and the macro level with them. And I was telling her how with what I do, I work with with adult grown women that have gone through an aftercare program, and then they're re-entering society and rebuilding their life. And some things that we see that they need are the same things that you implemented into this, in the sense of they need to be taught a skill and a trade, and they need to be empowered, and they need the hand up, they need to be exposed to lifestyles that they haven't seen before. Like when you take your etiquette class, well, they've never been put in that place, so they don't know how to interact in that place. And then the next piece, more at the macro level, is the service to others. In order to continue, I 100% am an advocate for this, that in order to continue the journey you were placed on and the growth that God has created for you to experience, you have got to constantly be connected to those that are so dependent on him, and pouring into them and serving them and mentoring them. And so it's so interesting to say, the same values and principles that we're building into our social enterprise, you built into a beauty pageant. Like,
pageant.
I love it. And I want to connect you with Lieutenant Kelly Hall. She's a lieutenant in the Navy, and she just competed in the Miss California pageant, I believe. She's a podcast host and a speaker, and you guys could do some really incredible things together.
And Brandy, even though it was that's one of the projects, the beauty pageant, then there's the sports arm of it. But can I tell you, I have 100% success rate with young people who reach out to me in preparation for scholarships, such as the UK Chevening Scholarship, the US Fulbright Scholarship, the Rhodes Scholarship. Every single one I've prepared have gotten a scholarship. It's a formula. Planning and preparation is key. And that practice, even though I applied it to a beauty pageant, it's applied at SCORE. SCORE, as you know, is one of the largest resource partners to the SBA and the Chambers of Commerce across the nation, formed 1 year after the SBA formed over 50 years ago by retired senior executives that wanted to give back. So it's a nonprofit. We don't get paid. And we give business consulting and advice with a mandate to help small businesses grow. And it's free and it's confidential. My values are applied right there. In the consulting world, where I'm training the entire organization, employees, primarily senior level executives, but I've trained the entire, and I've built a relationship over the years with our clients. We do repeated business. So we grow with them. We understand their goals and objectives, what they're working on, what their targets are. And we streamline in terms of our professional development training to make sure that their employees have the support needed to meet those deliverables and play their part in achieving the goals. Those values that I talked to you about, that I learned from a little girl, were applied. And remember, I'm coming from a developing country with a population of approximately 3 million people. Yes, we're the land of wood and water, and our motto is out of many one people because of the history. Arawak Indians, Taino Indians were there before, and then the slave trade brought the Africans, and the indentured slavery brought the Asians and a mixture. So you never know what a Jamaican is going to look like. But with all the beauty that surrounded us, we still had our challenges. And then now fast forward, I get married and I'm moving now. And I've crossed continents with my work. But here it is, I'm migrating from all that I know, my safety net, my family, my friends, and I'm coming. And where do I get to? Texas, one of the largest states in the United States of America. And, and then you guys have flybys, these really high highways that freak me out. Can I tell you, thank the Lord for Waze. Thank the Lord for Waze. And I recommend for anybody transitioning into any new environment, a couple of things. Use Waze, because it teaches you where things are. The highway is just getting you from point A to point B. But Waze really shows you where all the things are, and you get to really learn more about your space. And it's, it's a little more gentle on you, or it's not fast paced, and there's usually no traffic. So, Waze. The other thing is connect with the Chamber of Commerce. They're a phenomenal resource in terms of getting connected. And certainly tap into the benefits that SCORE offers, score.org or Dallas.score. I don't quite remember, but
I'll
Dallas.
put the link in the show notes.
Yes, there you go. Perfect. And really tap into that, because we are a support to the SBA, which means we would know what funding is available. We'll be able to help you to be able to apply for it and give you the strongest chance of obtaining it. And so we'll have a lot of information that the general public may not have. And we know about minorities and how to prepare our clients to make sure. And the majority of our clients, Brandy, are women.
That's awesome.
A majority of the small owned businesses are women. And we also work with the Veteran Center with VR Small, who's also a SCORE mentor, but she's a founder of the Veterans Women Enterprise Center. And Texas in particular has the second largest women veterans in business benefits that are given to veterans that other women can partner with, and it can be a win-win scenario. So learning and take care of relationships, invest in them. You get out of relationships what you put in. I think it's important, and I pride myself with the fact that no matter which country I'm in, I have a fair balance of both females and males. Some people are, either one or the other. I am balanced with gender. I love on people, and I am thankful for them, and I show appreciation because I know God put us in each other's lives for a reason. And I know the value of being in a new space and finding people who are there for you and embrace you and support you. And I've been blessed to have some of those. I've also had some challenges transitioning as a woman in business and having to rebuild. And, I've spent 2 decades building a business in Jamaica and in the Caribbean, and now I have to be trying to build a business here. So somewhat starting over. A lot of people would give up on that, but it's where my path has led me, and I just have to take it and run with it, do the best I can. And I really appreciate you too, Brandy, and the work that you're doing and sharing this platform with me to be able to help people to understand it's a journey. Life is a journey. It's not a destination, and we're not here forever. And our choices today will determine what tomorrow looks like. And it just makes a difference in people's lives. I've worked with so many people who I know even a kind gesture of a compliment can warm their heart and help them to cope when they're going through difficult times that they may not share with you. And just your kindness may be the only sign of hope that there's still good in the world. We inflict pain, whether it be through our fears and our insecurities and our prejudices or our own, challenges. Not sometimes willingly, sometimes, unconsciously, but we have to challenge ourselves as individuals to really do better. We have to tap into the basics. And this is one of the things that, even though COVID is a tough time for all of us, it's a tough time, and some people are struggling. Suicide rates are increasing because of COVID related, and people are really struggling. But one of the things it really means to me, and I think all of us, is to slow down, refocus on what's ultimately important, realign yourself with your values and your principles, and decide on what this journey of life is going to be for you and those that you influence and those around you. The air pollution is reduced significantly. People are spending more time with families. We were on such a pace in this career world and just trying to get by and just trying to meet the bills and pay the credit card and take care of the debt and all of that we stopped living. I think we really got into existing. And existing for me is when you wake up and you're consumed by your responsibilities, your heartache, your challenges, your bills, and you can't dismiss those things, but some of us were overwhelmed by them and became a slave to those things, versus waking up and going, thank you, Lord, for another day. Thank you for my health. Thank you for my family. Thank you for my friends. Thank you for the opportunities you've presented. Yes, I don't have all things, but I have enough. I have, so much more than so many others. And when people think their world is tough, just listen to the news or take the time to truly listen to people and their journey. You'll then realize that, wow, it's not so bad.
I love that. I love that. And I want to end with because you have opened up this conversation that we could continue for another hour, about the starting over and the taking action and trusting this process. So many across the entire world right now are truly, whether they've chosen to start over and go in a different direction, or they're thinking about it. I've had so many conversations where people say, I don't want to go back to what I did before. Like I want what I do to count, and I want to build a legacy or make an impact, or I want to do this dream that I've had on my heart, because now we realize like life is short and we're not in control. What would be your 2, 3, 4
Yes.
things that you would recommend if someone is wanting to completely pivot and do this call that they've had on their life rather than going back to existing? What are just a few takeaways you would tell them to do in order to take that first step of action?
Well, one of the first things I would say is to do a personal assessment on you as an individual. Really look at the goals that you had in the past, the goals that you may have now. They may change, they may be the same. And I say do a SWOT analysis. Look at your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. And really look at you as a whole. And truly tap into what you think makes you happy. What are some of the things that you do that brings the greatest feeling of joy? What makes you smile? What inspires you? What are the things that you just love doing? And whatever that is, the truth is, Brandy, some of us can't, or it's difficult to do what we love because it may not amount to making the kind of living that we need or to meet our responsibilities with our children and whatever the case is. And so some of us can't do what we love, but I encourage people to learn to love what you do because it's a stepping stone to the next level. Never think you're there by accident. It's by design. Learn as much as you possibly can and take care of the relationships on this journey, because that relationship might turn out to be beneficial in another area or maybe help you to develop in that true love that you have later on. I don't know. Life just works that way. The other thing I would say is take the opportunity to recognize we're now in a digital age. Get familiar with technology. Spend some time on it. Don't fear it. Embrace it. Learn. And what you do not understand, call a friend. Call someone, a colleague. You just might find an expert in that field that can help you to better understand it. It doesn't mean you'll become a genius at it or have a full grasp of it, but having basic understanding and knowledge and embracing the digital world, I think, is important. The other thing I would say is learn as much as you possibly can. And for the things you want to do, I would say start with a checklist. Really start with a list and identify some of the things you've been wanting to do and haven't been able to. For the first time in my career, I'm grounded. I would be on a plane every other month, traveling for weeks at a time with my work, doing, business consulting and professional development training and executive coaching and so on. This is the first time in my life that I'm not on a plane, which is very foreign to me. But I enjoy writing. I've written a lot of books in terms of training material for corporate world and all of that. But one of the other things I wanted to do was to write a children's book. And I finally did, and it will soon be published. It's called The Curious Little Dancing Girl, Izzy, off of my daughter. And that was when I was missing home Jamaica. And with all the things I've done, I wanted to tap into 5 areas that I think young, kids are struggling with. And I wanted to bring it back in a story that's a mixture of fiction and fantasy. It wasn't, fiction and fact.
Yes.
And I wanted to make sure that I tapped into the importance of good manners and respect. valuing your friends and family, protecting the environment, having a good understanding of history, the journey, and having a sound spiritual foundation. And so the book is off of that, but it's written in a story form. Because, you know, kids today, if they think it's an indoctrination of education, you have lost them. So that's why I brought in the fiction part of it and, you know, paired it with fact. So I've taken the time to write that story. I am learning more. I'm baking more with my little girl. I never baked. I cooked a lot. I loved cooking, but I never baked much. And so I'm spending time baking now, and we've perfected some things. Let me tell you, anything we dedicate our time to during this COVID period of our lives, we will perfect. So whatever you invest the time in, you will get better, and keep doing it. Whatever it is that you are enjoying, keep doing it and do it well. Create more structure in your life, or start to take better care of yourself, Brandy, especially as women. Oh boy, we're prepared to take care of the world, but not ourselves. I would encourage women to take that bath sometimes, you know, turn on some calming music, watch that love story and have a good cry. You know, call your girlfriends or your family and have a heart to heart. Take care of you, eat better, you know, take your vitamins, exercise, get rest. We're going all the time. We wear multiple hats. We're in the corporate world. We're doing our thing, but then we're moms, we're wives, we're sisters, we're cousins, we're friends, and it never stops. And I remember my only time, Brandy, that I had was when I had a shower. Peace and quiet. And even then, my husband would walk in, my daughter would walk in. Like, I give you all privacy. What is this? Because I'm mom, because I'm wife. Yes. You know, you have to take charge of your space. You have to take back some space for you. Have a talk with your family and say, look here, I give you some space. I need some space too. I'm going to have a bath and I don't want you all to come.
Yes, you know? I know. Listen, when COVID hit and we were all home and we were all quarantined, my kids are big, and we reverted to like when they were toddlers, banging on the door while I'm taking a shower. And I literally had like the meltdown day where I was like, I'm with you nonstop doing everything for everyone. And I just need like 15 minutes with no questions.
And the problem too, Brandy, is as a mother, as a, you know, family member, you're with that 15 minutes, the first 5 is going to go, are they okay?
Yeah. What am I making for dinner? Do I need to get groceries? Like, oh right. Yeah.
It's constant. So I would say to women, slow it down for you. Carve out some time for you. You have to take care of you in order to take care of everyone. It's just like on the plane, right? In case of emergency, put on your right before you can help others. We need to be reminded of that. We need to feed ourselves too. Spiritually, emotionally, we have to take care of us because we are burning out. You know, it's never ending. Our brains take longer. You know, I remember years ago when, you know, if I asked somebody else dating, you know, what are you thinking about? And he would say nothing. I used to think, you're hiding something. You don't want to tell me. And years later, with the work I've done with colleagues who are psychologists, psychiatrists, and just journeying and experiencing, I now know, Brandy, it is possible for a man to be thinking nothing. For women, that's unheard of. We don't know how to slow our minds down, you know?
Yes.
It's remarkable. So we can take a chapter out of their book and try to still our minds.
I can tell you, my husband and I, the first clearest like depiction of when I knew that was possible was we were having a really like in-depth, serious conversation that involved like more kids versus not more kids. And we were struggling and not meeting in the middle. And we're driving down the road and I'm like in deep thought of, you know, this just being like, what do we do here? How do we get past this? And he's silent and we're going to town. We're going to the ice cream store and he's driving and I'm like, what are you thinking? And he's like, I can't decide if I want a banana split or a hot fudge sundae.
I tell you, it's remarkable. It's remarkable. Meanwhile, your brain was like,
Yes, like kids and marriage and the state of everything. And oh, yeah, his is ice cream. So I love that. And I love that you brought that up. Like, we need to take a page out of their book and learn how to just think nothing or think about ice cream for a bit.
Be still. And that's one of the reasons why I started painting again, because it's a quiet space. I have to concentrate on, simple things. My mind is not now worried about or thinking about work or what I have to do. It's just the moment. Or gardening. I enjoy gardening too, because I'm just out there. The plants aren't talking back. I'm talking to it, but it's not talking back. It's just another space that I've been able to carve out for myself, because guess what? My daughter is not interested and neither is my husband. So it's my space. So wherever you can find that space, I think it's important to take.
So speaking of that space, where can people find you online to connect?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn as Laura and Margaret Butler. They can also find me at fusionconsultingja.com. I'm on Facebook as well. They can email me at fusionconsultingltd@gmail.com. I'm available. We're in the digital age. We can find each other. And I welcome any opportunity to hear from those who might think I have something of value that I can share with them, or they can share with me, and we can learn.
That. If you enjoyed this conversation, do me a favor, head over to iTunes, write a review, give us a rating. We'll take 5 stars if you're feeling generous, and tell all your friends about us. By the way, have you picked up the Power Project book yet? Because it's out in the world and you're going to hear all about my personal creation of the Power Hat Company. Speaking of the Power Hat Company, have you gotten a hat pre-ordered yet? So you can get the book at thepowerprojectbook.com, and you can check out the hats over at thepowerhatco.com. I can't wait to chat with you next week, but until then, go out and live your best purpose-filled lives.